Do begin this morning with breaking news out of Kentucky. Overnight, 2 Army helicopters crashed during what's been described as a routine training mission. Officials say the 2 HH-60 Black Hawk aircraft from the 101st Airborne Division collided around 10 p.m. in Trigg County. That's near the Fort Campbell military base.
In a statement, the division said there had been several casualties as a result of the crash and that they were taking this time to focus on, quote, the soldiers and their families who were involved. Authorities from the Kentucky State Police said police and military investigators arrived on the scene following the incident. Now we'll turn to Nashville, where this morning protesters are set to rally in support of new gun laws in the aftermath of that deadly school shooting. It comes as we're getting a look at dramatic new video showing young children in their school uniforms running across a busy road to escape the gunfire. Last night, hundreds of people gathered at a candlelight vigil to honor and mourn the 3 children and 3 adults who were killed. Among those in attendance, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, who visited the site of the makeshift memorial and laid flowers for each of the victims. For more, we're joined by MSNBC anchor Lindsay Reiser outside of the Tennessee Capitol in Nashville. Lindsay, good morning. So once again, gun laws have been a major talking point in the aftermath of yet another mass shooting. What are you hearing from leaders in Tennessee?
I mean, how heartbreaking is that video, Zing Clay, of these kids in these school uniforms who should be in class studying, and they're running for their lives through the woods and across the street. I mean, people here are so deeply affected by this, and I've been talking to a lot of people about what needs to be done. How soon is too soon to be talking about this, but how late is too late? And I talked to a local state representative of the Democratic Party, and he said now is the time to be talking about gun reform because they have a finite window in their legislative session in the state capitol behind me. There are no red flag laws in Tennessee. There are actually laws going through their General Assembly that would expand gun access, essentially loosen gun laws. I talked to a minister who not only ministers families who go to Covenant School, but one of the victims' families. And he said he hates how all this gets politicized in the beginning of these tragedies, but he agrees that something does need to be done. He's a father. He's got 3 kids himself. And I also talked to people at the vigil last night who tell me they also want to see something done. And when I ask for specifics, what does that look like? They tell me it's a combination of gun reform, mental health reform. And so this is obviously a very complex issue, but people here will be demanding change this morning at the Capitol behind me. There's a rally taking place in a couple of hours in which basically the message last night at the vigil was come tomorrow to hold them accountable. Clay.
And Lindsay, I do want to dig into some of the conversations I know you had last night at the vigil. You spoke to a woman who teaches 7- and 8-year-olds, and she said she constantly is thinking about how she would handle a school shooter. What exactly was she telling you?
Obviously deeply affected by this. She's a teacher. She would never want to see this happen. But Zinkley, what was fascinating was how she looked at the body camera video almost to prepare her for the possibility of something like this happening. Take a listen.
I watched some of the footage, but I looked at it through a different lens. I looked at it as, okay, this is what the cops do when they go in for this. This is what I need to do.
But how crazy is it that you're looking at surveillance video of a school shooting almost as a student? You're studying what to do.
I don't like being there, but in order to know that I can provide the most protection for my kids, I think that's how we have to look at it.
And, you know, she cares so deeply about her kids. She said any day she would put herself in front of those kids. She said parents entrust her to take care of their babies. And so she says that's what she's prepared to do, Zinkley.
Teachers already have to do so much, and now they're thinking about this. Lindsay, I know we often talk about how hard it can be also for parents and children to discuss and process tragedies like this. So what did that teacher tell you about how discussing this shooting with her own students, how she's doing that, and what does she want to see done?
I mean, this isn't an easy conversation to have. There's no playbook for this. They don't teach this, or how do you teach a child what happened? Even a minister that I talked to said he doesn't really know either. I mean, point to psychologists and things like that. Be there for comfort, offer the support they need. But she did talk about also wanting to preserve their mental health, answer questions that they have. Then this is what she said about that.
I honestly don't know yet. It will just kind of be an in the moment kind of thing. If they don't bring it up, I honestly probably won't bring it up, because I I don't want to cause any, I don't want to bring on any kind of trauma or any thoughts that don't need to be there. I don't want to create it.
The victims are 9 years old, her students 7 and 8. So obviously she's been at a conference. She's actually going to see her students for the first time since this shooting today. So some difficult conversations that are happening. But obviously the community here continuing to just grieve and to come together and mourn Zane Clay.
Absolutely. I mean, we're praying for that community. Lindsay Reiser, thank you so much.
So many heartbreaking facets to this. Well, the Nashville shooting has also reignited the debate over gun laws in Washington. President Biden has been among those weighing in. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander has more.
Just hours after gunfire echoed through that Nashville school, renewed pleas for action.
I don't have any more tears, y'all.
President Biden repeating his call to ban so-called assault weapons.
Why in God's name do we allow these weapons of war on our streets and at our schools?
But Republicans have a different view, including mass shooting survivor Steve Scalise.
All they want to do is take guns away from law-abiding citizens before they even know the facts.
Any gun legislation has little chance of passing Congress.
If you think Washington's going to fix this problem, you're wrong.
That vacuum has left states to take action, including Colorado, that's witnessed mass shootings at Club Q, Aurora, and Columbine. Lawmakers there advancing a bill to expand red flag laws, empowering more people to petition a judge to confiscate guns from those who present a danger to themselves or others. In Illinois, after that July 4th parade shooting, Democratic lawmakers approved an assault weapons ban that now faces legal challenges. But in Florida, leading Republicans are pushing to allow gun owners to carry weapons without a permit. Andrew Pollock's daughter Meadow was killed by a teen gunman at Florida's Stoneman Douglas High School. He says weapons bans are not the answer to stopping mass shootings.
It's easy to just say that let's just ban rifles instead of looking into the failures that led up to it.
He wants more armed security at schools and more restrictions for those with mental health issues.
You want to fix a lot of the shootings in this country, prevent the mentally ill from being able to purchase the rifle.
It really, really, really just pains me to see that here we are again.
Zanetta Everhart's son Zaire incredibly survived last year's mass shooting at Buffalo's Tops supermarket after being shot in the neck. She's demanding tougher gun restrictions, like an assault weapons ban.
What is the solution here in your view?
It's simply the guns. That's the problem. But our lawmakers don't want to solve the problem. And that's what it looks like. It looks like they just don't care.
President Biden says there's little else he can do, that he's effectively exhausted his executive actions on guns, that it's now in the hands of Congress. But leading Republicans say it's premature to have a discussion about new gun laws with the investigation into that Nashville shooting still ongoing. Back to you.
More to come. All right, Peter, thanks so much. We're following some breaking news this morning out of Russia, where Wall Street Journal reporter and American citizen Evan Gershkovich has been detained for suspicion of espionage. According to Russian state media, Gershkovich was accused of collecting, quote, information constituting a state secret about the activities of one of the enterprises of the Russian military-industrial complex. The Kremlin has also commented on the arrest, saying his detention is a matter for FSB security service. If convicted here, he could face up to 20 years in prison. Now, the Wall Street Journal has released a statement saying, quote, the Wall Street Journal vehemently denies the allegations from the FSB and seeks the immediate release of our trusted and dedicated reporter, Evan Gershkovich. We stand in solidarity with Evan and his family. Gershkovich is the first journalist employed by an American outlet to be detained in Russia since the Cold War.
And Pope Francis spent the night in a hospital after he was admitted yesterday with breathing difficulties. The Vatican says the 86-year-old is being treated for a respiratory infection and will stay in the hospital for a few days. NBC News foreign correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome with more on this. Claudio, good morning. So this is the latest in a series of health issues for the Pope. What's his condition like this morning?
Good morning, Zinkley. Well, the Vatican literally just issued an update about half an hour ago. They said in a statement that the Pope has rested well overnight, that his clinical picture is progressively improving and that he is continuing his planned treatment. The statement continues by saying that the Pope this morning had breakfast, he read some newspapers, and then he resumed work. And then it ends by saying that before lunch, he went to the little chapel of the private apartment where he gathered in prayer and received the Eucharist. As you can see, these are all reassuring and positive news. Sinclair.
We love to hear that. And Claudio, I know this healthcare scare, comes at one of the holiest and busiest times for the Catholic Church. Palm Sunday is just this weekend, and that leads us into Easter the following weekend. Do we know if the Pope is going to be able to lead the Church's ceremonies, and what exactly happens if he cannot?
Well, we don't know yet. Obviously, we'll have to see how long it takes him to recover. We know that he's going to spend a few days in hospital, so it is fair to predict that he won't be able to lead Palm Sunday, at least, which is only in 2 or 3 days. But hopefully, he will recover in time to cover to lead the other events next week, like the Way of the Cross and, of course, Easter weekend. When he can't, traditionally in the Catholic Church, when a pope can't lead Mass or any other liturgical mission, well, the person that replaces him is the Dean of the College of Cardinals, who in this particular case is Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, who is an Italian cardinal who did just that 2 years ago when the Pope was again in that hospital, but having a colon surgery. He spent about 10 days in the hospital, and Giovanni Battista Re, the Dean of College of Cardinals, back then led Mass. So he'd probably do that on Palm Sunday, but then we'll have to see how quickly the Pope recovers to see whether he can preside any event next week, Sinclair.
Claudio, I imagine many people are praying for the Pope. What's the reaction been like from the wider Catholic Church?
Well, there's been a lot of concern, not only among Catholics around the world, because, of course, we're talking about an 86-year-old man who also has had part of his lung removed as a young man because of another infection. So a respiratory problem, you put those three things together, is actually a very dangerous thing. So it will come to everybody's reassurance that he has spent, as the Vatican says, he spent the night well, and that he's quickly recovering, at least according to the Vatican. But the statement last night said that the Pope was thanking everyone for the messages that he was receiving and then asking for prayers, and I'm sure that there is a lot of people around the world who did just that. Zinkler, Stephen?
Claudio, thank you so much. We also have a new update this morning into one of the investigations into former President Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's appealing a key ruling from a federal judge. It's related to a grand jury investigation into the January 6th attack on the Capitol. This is according to a source familiar with that matter. And for the latest, we're joined by NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, good morning to you. So what can you tell us about the judge's decision and why Trump is appealing it?
Right. This is a significant order because these aides are key, including Mark Meadows, his former chief of staff. This is part of the special counsel's investigation into the alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election ahead of January 6, 2021. And these aides, they hold a treasure trove of information. And that is exactly why prosecutors want to have them come sit before the grand jury and provide their testimony, because they were the ones that were having conversations with Donald Trump in the weeks leading up to it and on January 6th. Now, what the court ruled was that they must go in and testify. And that is why you have seen Donald Trump appeal that ruling, because Donald Trump does not believe that it should ever exist. And the last thing he wants is these key aides to go and testify about those conversations.
And Vaughn, we should note, Trump has denied wrongdoing pertaining to the January 6th insurrection. I know Mark Meadows has previously fought efforts to testify. What's going on there now?
Right, because Donald Trump was claiming, and these aides were claiming, that executive privilege, the conversations within the White House, protect them from revealing these conversations. But what the judge said was that potential criminality supersedes the executive privilege claims. We saw this back with the Nixon tapes. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Richard Nixon must turn over the tapes because of alleged criminality, and therefore the executive privilege in the secrecy of those tapes, it did not apply.
Hard to find a real precedent here for exactly what's going on. I also wanted to ask about this new polling out showing that Trump is still very popular with the GOP. I'm reminded of the 2016 when he was saying he could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and still be popular.
This is Donald Trump, right? And for years, what polling has shown us is that his base of support doesn't leave him. And that is why the political component of this is so important. A jury, if he were to be charged, would be the one to determine his guiltiness, right? But it's going to be the voters that ultimately determine whether they want him to be the next president of the United States. And just look at some of these numbers here. This is a new Quinnipiac poll that just came out here from this last week. And among Republican voters, 75% of them said that if he were to be charged, that it should not be disqualifying for him for president. These are the very voters that Donald Trump is looking to ascend to the Republican nomination for president. And so when you see numbers like that, Donald Trump has a reason to feel good, especially when other polling nationally shows him well ahead of his likely main chief rival, Ron DeSantis, at this point.
All right, the developments just keep coming. Vaughn Hilliard, thanks for keeping us updated.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And the threat of more severe weather continues this morning. For more, let's get a check at your Morning News Now weather.
Yeah, joining us now, meteorologist Angie Lastman. Hey, Angie.
Hey there, guys. We've got a busy couple of days when it comes to a storm system that's making its way across the country and leaving many people with the threat for severe weather. So here's the bullseye for today. The hazards that we're looking at, likely it's going to be more focused towards those strong winds up to 60 miles per hour as possible. So we could see some down trees, some down power lines, focused mainly from Topeka to Oklahoma City and into parts of northern Texas. But we're also going to see the potential for maybe some hail, an isolated tornado. But as that system continues its shift to the east, it'll gain some steam once it gets just east of the Rockies, and we'll start to see that area of potential severe weather grow for Friday. Here's what we're dealing with today, though. The strong winds will be centered over parts of the Rockies and into the plains. We'll see some snow working through parts of the upper Midwest as well. And then those strong storms will start to develop by this evening in that area that I just showed you, stretching from Oklahoma into Texas. Now, as we get into tomorrow, there's going to be now blizzard conditions that develop with strong winds, snow, heavy rain, all possible, stretching from the plains into the upper Midwest. Detroit, Chicago could see some heavy rain. Minneapolis could see some ample amounts of snow stretching into the upper peninsula of Michigan. And we'll also see some rounds of heavy rain accompanied by the potential for some really strong storms into the afternoon and into the evening hours tomorrow. So Friday afternoon, you're going to want to stay connected if you live anywhere where you see all these colors. There's an elevated risk in some of these spots for us to see the potential for several tornadoes, and we're talking about strong tornadoes, long track tornadoes as well. We know that once the sun goes down, that becomes an even more dangerous situation. We'll also see intense winds, likely up to 70, even 75 miles per hour, and potential hail sizes coming in golf ball to tennis ball size. So this all stretches from the Midwest into parts of basically the Mississippi Valley. So it's a large amount of people, millions, close to 50 million people are included in this tomorrow. And there's the areas that we're looking for the tornado danger. Now, that doesn't mean that if you live in the area where there's green, there won't be a tornado. We could still see some isolated tornadoes there. But if you live in these areas where there is those red lines, that's where you really want to pay attention. Make sure you have your severe weather plan for tomorrow into the afternoon and into the evening hours. It includes Memphis, big cities like Little Rock, Jonesboro, Davenport, Peoria. All of those places are going to be one to watch for tomorrow. The system isn't done just yet, though. We'll eventually start to see it spread some more rain into parts of the Great Lakes. We'll still see some of that lingering snow as well, but we'll also get the rain working into the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. It'll be a little bit of a busy day, a warm day on the East Coast. We could see temperatures into the 70s in Washington, D.C. and into the upper 60s in places like New York for Saturday, but still it'll be a little soggy for folks in there. Now, as far as the winter weather is concerned, we do have the alerts up. They are including parts of Minneapolis, again, and stretching into the upper peninsula of Michigan and as far west as the Dakotas because of the snow that we're expecting. Some of these amounts are pretty high. We may be getting close to April, but we're still going to be dealing with maybe a foot of snow in places like Marquette. So we'll watch for some difficult travel into Saturday over the next couple of days. Just make sure those slick conditions are going to be out there, so you take it easy on the roadways. And then there's those rainfall amounts that we'll expect here. Most of it will be heavy downpours that could lead to some flooding concerns. Of course, we've had some saturated grounds, especially especially across parts of the southeast. So the flooding potential will be there again through Saturday. Now, beyond Saturday, we'll start to see things quieting down. If you live in the middle of the country for Saturday, it's going to look pretty nice. California, most of California, that is, will even get a break. But the rain and wind will be focused towards the East Coast. As we get into Sunday, much milder. It'll be pretty nice for most of the eastern half of the country. We'll still have some lingering flurries around the Great Lakes and into the high plains and some mountain snow out west. Beyond that, temperatures will kind of fluctuate back and forth. Today, right, we're going to end up into the 40s in Detroit. That's well below normal for this time of year. Tomorrow, we see that rebound back to the upper 50s, and we're kind of on a roller coaster ride here. 70s in Washington, D.C. as we get into tomorrow. That doesn't last long, though. That colder air works in with that system, and we go from the 50s in Kansas City on Saturday to the 70s for Sunday and Monday. So, guys, if you like the cool weather, you've got a little of that around the country. If you like the springtime weather, we've got that too. You just got to wait for it, I suppose.
Winter's hanging on.
I was going to say, and such a wide range. I also see Mercury rising, I think. I like that. Andy Lasman, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.